more.
Stand up, y'all. The next question is one nine.
Oh, 6.
Let me say this. I've had the pleasure of getting to know this man for a few years now. And we were just talking about accountability, and I don't want to put any more weight on your shoulders than you already have. But you are one of the few, and I will say few, I won't ask you to say that, but one of the few people that the majority of people look to you as an accountable politician. They appreciate the way you've shown up in a time that it has been very atypical than the times I grew up in. When you looked to politicians as a North Star.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of if you feel that and the responsibility you feel in being and showing up as you have.
Hey everybody.
He holding that mic like he about to rock something, ain't he?
I mean, and first, Ed, I just want to say what an honor it is to be here on stage with you. I mean, this man is not just a legend; he is a genius, and he has continued to lift up our community throughout your entire life and career. So blessings, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. And Ron, I just want to very quickly just say to you and to this entire organization, say bless you. I'm excited to be here. And congratulations on something that's a very special homecoming for us, but then also a very special statement that is being made that will be felt for generations to come. And so congratulations. It's I think about this moment in really clear in really clear ways. And actually, what's funny is that I think over the past, we'll call it 7 months, a lot of people have called to like check on me. Like, are you good? Knowing the kind of assault that we're under right now, and knowing that there are some very direct and very clear crosshairs that are sitting here everywhere that we go. But the thing about it is, I have never been more clear-eyed. I've never been more certain. And I feel like part of it is that I've never been more appreciative of history and this moment that we find ourselves in right now. Where, I think about, and again, we're just outside, for those who aren't from this area, we are literally just miles away from Maryland, from our state, the best state. And I think what's really interesting about Maryland is just the deeply complex history of our state. Where Maryland really is the northernmost southern state in the country. The Mason-Dixon line runs through the state of Maryland. Where even if you look at our state flag, now I wear my state flag, my lapel here, even our state flag is a contradiction. Because our state flag is literally a combination of a Union and a Confederate flag together. And so, I think about the weight, but then I think about the past, and I think about the weight that all of those who came before us must have felt. Maryland is literally the birthplace of Harriet Tubman. Yes. Maryland is the birthplace of Frederick Douglass. Yes. Maryland is the birthplace of Thurgood Marshall. So it's like, I've never been more clear-eyed that what this moment sees, what this moment requires, is that the things that we know and what we are seeing, first of all, it is not new, and frankly, nor is it surprising. I'm tired of being surprised. When I hear news alerts, I'm like, guys, come on. Like, we called this. But I do feel more emboldened, more empowered, more steel-backed now than ever before. Because I am very clear that how we respond in this moment is going to be remembered for generations. What we do in this moment is going to be remembered for generations. And so I So the weight, the pressure, the eyeballs, they're real. The targets, they're real. But I also know that it's no more real than the eyeballs of the past that are looking at us right now.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I want to take two roads, if you will. We were just talking about the importance of state government, particularly in a time like this when the federal government has a different agenda. Give me a sense of, from your seat, the importance of not just your back being steeled, but a state standing strong against an onslaught from a federal government.
I love that because I'm telling you right now, I really believe, I don't know a time in recent history where who your governor is matters more than now.
That's right.
Because like the state's the ball game in many ways. Governors and attorneys general are like, they are the ones who are put in these seats for moments like now. And I remember when I was first getting ready to run and people were like, well, what makes you want to get, why do you want to run for office? Or why do you want to go into politics? Because I'd never been involved in politics for my life. I don't come from that background. And I was like, I want to be the governor. Because governor is a different kind of role. You're a chief executive. You balance a budget. You're the one who sets the direction and the course for where the state is going to go. And I actually love the fact that we can actually show what a different direction looks like and not just talk about it. Like as governors, I don't have the luxury of sitting there and saying, this is bad and that is bad and railing and all that kind of stuff. I have the ability to show a different direction. So for example, and just take so much when it comes to Black culture, Black history, Black businesses, etc. Right? When the federal government decides that they are going to have a full-on assault on banning books and banning history and this and that, do you know what I did as governor? I signed legislation banning the banning of books in the state of Maryland. So in the state of Maryland, you cannot do that. Right? I don't have to rail against how bad this is. I signed legislation that actually says it is illegal to do that in the state of Maryland. Right? So when we're saying, okay, there's this assault, when you look at the bill that was passed, where, and a lot of people have missed this, by the way, there is something, there's a clause in there called a risk-sharing agreement that now happens with our HBCUs. Essentially what that did was, that took over 70% of our HBCUs and just put them in a negative financial position, because it now means they owe the federal government money. Risk-sharing agreement, look this part up, it's one of the ridiculous parts of that ridiculous bill, right? So at a time when we are watching a federal assault on our HBCUs, and literally this is an existential threat to our nation's HBCUs, what was just put on board in the state of Maryland, I introduced and passed a budget that now made historic over $1.3 billion of investments in our state's 4 HBCUs, making sure they are going to be sustainable regardless of what happens on the federal side. And when it comes to our Black businesses, that we've done procurement reform in the state, because, and I love when people say, well, you have to be careful about using state dollars because you don't want the state picking winners and losers. And I say, what has the state been doing for 400 years?
All right.
And I'm not saying to do this because, let's be clear, the racial wealth gap, which I said on Jump Street, that we were going to be the first state that ends the racial wealth gap in this country. I said, it's not because I'm picking winners. It's because the racial wealth gap has created losers.
That's right.
And it's not even just of a group. It's the country. The racial wealth gap over the past 2 decades has cost this country $16 trillion in GDP. That is not GDP of a group. That's GDP. That's right. Racism is expensive. Bigotry is expensive. And so if you actually want to increase GDP, if you want to increase per capita access, if you want to increase capital, if you want to increase economic prosperity for a nation, make sure everyone is participating, and that means doing things like what we've done with procurement reform, where just in my time, we have now allocated over $800 million in state contracts to Black businesses in the state of Maryland. And so who your governor is matters. Because governors can actually not just say, this is bad, governors can show what is right.
Let me take that by extension to, and I want to clarify here, not the federal government, but federal politics really is just a collection of states.
That's true.
Right, at the end of the day.
That's right.
When you look at that too, now you have to step back and look at the larger political parties. I'm going to say, these are not your words, that both parties are dysfunctional and Democrats are, let's try to be careful, complicit, but they're twirling in the wind. What I would like to hear from you is what you would like to see from the Democratic Party to try to right the ship, if I can mix metaphors.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because, I mean, people have said, they're like, well, how do you stand and defend what the Democratic Party is doing? And I'm telling them, being very honest, that I can't defend the indefensible, and it's not my job to fix the Democratic Party. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, when I ran for governor, it's not like I was the Democratic Party's choice. They had other candidates who they were backing. Jarvis knows we ran against we had like 11 candidates. We ran against county executives, we ran against 3 statewide elected officials, we ran against 2 Obama cabinet secretaries. We ran against the former head of the DNC, the former head of the Democratic Party, and me. The guy who never run for office before in my life. And we ended up getting more votes than anyone who ever run for a governor in the history of the state of Maryland.
And with that applause, though, we should note that there was a time it looked bleak because you in single digits in the polls were very friendly for a time.
And I was at 1%. I was like, we did our first poll. I'm not voting was polling higher than Westmore. So I was losing to I'm not voting. So no, this was never something that was like some preconceived, like the party tapped me. The party didn't tap me, the party was trying to destroy me. And so I'm not interested in trying to save the party in that way, just to be very honest. And I think that the answer is that we're not, the Democratic Party, when people are like, well, what's our message? I always say when I hear that, that's the problem. When you're starting with what's our message, how about what are our results? Because the reason you're losing people is not because you didn't come up with the right slogan. Donald Trump, for this man, I will give this man this. He is an amazing vessel for the frustration. He does a great job of telling you what's wrong. He does a great job of telling you who's to blame. He does a great job of saying it's the reason that you don't have a job is because of this group. The reason your child didn't get accepted to college is because of them. The reason you can't afford a home, well, that's them. And people hear that. He's an amazing vessel for the frustration. What he is not is a vehicle for the solution. Because that's not his interest. He's not concerned about that. And so the thing that I think that the party needs to do is stop worrying about what is the right message to pull people back. Start worrying about why have people chosen to leave in the first place? And do you have the policies that could actually focus on that? I tell people, when I was running for governor, I was very clear, our thing, we are focusing on work, wages, and wealth. Creating pathways for work, wages, and wealth for the people of our state. And I said, that is my North Star, and I'm not budging off of it. And so what do? We made sure we focused on things like getting more people back into a workforce. We made historic investments in apprenticeship programs and trade programs, and saying that just because a person chooses not to go to a 4-year school does not mean they should be locked out of economic opportunity for the rest of their lives. That we made sure we can get more people who are coming back with records and get them back into a workforce. It's the reason that I signed the largest mass pardon in the history of the United States of America, where in one stroke of a pen, I pardoned over 175,000 misdemeanor cannabis convictions, because you cannot talk about the benefits of legalization if you do not address the consequences of criminalization. It's the reason that we focus on doing things like raising wages for our workers, because gone should be the day when we have people who are working jobs, and in some cases multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. And when we focus on wealth, it means making sure that people can own more than they owe, that they can pass something off to their children besides debt, that we can create more, turn more renters into homeowners, that we made historic investments in access to banking and increasing liquidity, that we created something called Just Communities, where I took a look at all the communities, and by the way, it was 419 census tract communities in the state of Maryland that have been the historic victims of things like redlining and mass incarceration and urban redesign. Basically all the things that specifically impacted Black communities all throughout the state of Maryland. And we created a fund called the Just Community Fund that now allocates over $400 million to these communities and putting them at the front of the line to make sure they're getting the capital to address the racial wealth gap and address the harm that happened when you saw the private sector and government collude to hurt Black communities. Unapologetically. But the reason I bring it up is this. We were clear, work, wages, and wealth. And when people said, well, what has then been the impact? What's been the impact is we have some of the highest approval numbers of any governor in the United States of America going into our re-election year next year. So if the party wants to get it right, get your policies right. Because if you get your policies right, the people will respond accordingly.
One thing that I can say is, in very short order, you have become more than just the governor of Maryland. You can usually, particularly those of us in the media, start to see early on who resonates beyond their state. And we're starting to see that as a pathway to bigger things for many. I'm not gonna say, and I tell you this all the time, because I know the answer, so why waste that? But I say this all the time. Is it something that you will really consider the idea that in the next few years, I will at least sit down and take stock in the possibility of running for, I'll just say, higher office?
Well, we have our re-election next year. And
I just want to be the best governor I can be in the state of Maryland.
No, and actually, it's better than that. I don't just want to win re-election. I'm trying to send a message. I'm trying to send a message with our re-election. I'm trying to win places in Western Maryland. I'm trying to win places in the Eastern Shore. I'm trying to win Southern Maryland. I'm trying to win Baltimore and Montgomery and Prince George's and Cecil and Hartford. I'm trying to win them all. And I'm trying to win them all because I want people to know that we kept our promises. That when we said leave no one behind, that we meant that, and that the state moved accordingly. And so I really do believe that come next November, if we do what we need to do, we are going to send a message. And yes, the message will be, I want that message to be heard loud and clear, and not just from Western Maryland to Eastern Shore. I want the entire country to be like, what just happened in the state of Maryland? And so if we can, I am so committed to getting this right. And I really believe if you get this right, then you will accomplish everything that God has intended. But you got to make sure that you accomplish the mission in front of you. And the mission we have in front of us right now is I'm trying to show every single person in the state of Maryland that this governor understands the assignment and understands the moment.
I will suggest that you all read between the lines as you will. Let me ask you this as our time is almost up. One of the things that we just talked about with the panel prior to this one is the idea of your responsibility, the voter, the citizen's responsibility in this game. Give this audience a sense of what you would tell them their responsibility is, because as I said in the last panel, too often voters believe their responsibility is election day and that's it. And that is perhaps, in my opinion, day one of it should be your participation. Give us a sense of a roadmap you'd like to see people to travel on.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that we can all do is define this aspect of democracy and citizenship. Because you're right, I mean, for a lot of people, it is just about what happens on election day. But the things that are happening and the things that are impacting the people, it always translates long after election day. And I'm looking at the policies that we're now dealing with and the cruelty of some of these things that are now upon us and these things that are coming upon us. I cannot overstate enough how damaging so many of these things were. And let's be clear, I think it's wonderful that people went out and marched and protested against a big, beautiful bill. I wish so many of those people went out and actually got out on election day. So we could have kept some of these things from actually passing and becoming law. But the thing that I want people to remember though is this, is it's difficult to get people engaged on election years if you are not engaged on off years. Because then I think people just look at elections like they're a game. And they look at the results of the people who the elections are impacting like they're a game. Like if the only time you are coming to come talk to me or my community is when you're asking for a vote, then forgive me if I don't take you seriously when you're asking me for my vote. If I have to educate you on election years about what's happening to me or my community every year, then forgive me if I don't take your campaign very seriously. And so I just think that this becomes a responsibility for us to not just pressure test our elected officials and the people who are looking to run for office and all that kind of stuff, and really test them, say like, listen, I need to know what is your agenda. Don't just tell me about, all the things you're doing. What is your specific agenda and what is the plan to accomplish it? But also it's really important that we are taking care of our communities in the years when people aren't watching. That's right. And when the cameras aren't there. Because I feel like if we can do that and continue to have a sustainable build, a sustainable connection where individual citizens, even if you're not running for office, but you're out there showing a level of connection to the community and connection to the people, then people will be more engaged when it comes time for them to figure out who do they want to be their elected officials or whatever the case might be. But if we sometimes somehow think that for all of us, that community engagement is just like a Pavlov's dog exercise where like we're told when to get involved and it's every 2 or 4 or 6 years depending on the race, then I think we will continually watch people who will not just pull away, but frankly, people watch people who the whole system will be the blame, their own personal blame for why they're existing in the situations that are existing right now.
I would just ask simply that people listen to what he just said about completion of duties. Take a look at what he has been able to do with the bridge collapse. If he had not handled that in the way that he did, trust me, you would know. You don't know it's going ahead of schedule because they don't necessarily tell you that. Had it not been the case, you would have heard from it. When you look at a time where politicians are not brave and getting in front of issues, for a governor to say, you can't ban books here, takes some bravery because there's going to be pushback. So please take a look at who is doing for you. And if you don't live in Maryland, utilize him as a guide to your governor, to your legislators, to suggest, but it can be done. Take a look at Maryland. So take a look at Maryland.
Move to Maryland.
Take a look at Governor Westmore. For those of you who do live in the state, when that re-election comes around, remember what he said. Do your due diligence. I think you'll be happy. And read between them lines and see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Westmore.
Thanks, y'all.